My son died at 17. 3 days later, I found his bucket list hidden in his desk. 23 dreams he'd never get to live. So I decided to live them for him. I'm about to tell you the story of how my son's death taught me how to live. How a 17-year-old's dreams saved his father's life. This is for every parent who thinks they have time. I promised my son at his grave that I would complete every single item on his bucket list. It took me 10 years. Changed my life. Saved my life. Here's how. My 17-year-old son had dreams I never knew about. Dreams written in a notebook I found after he died. And completing them became my reason to keep living. It took me 10 years, 23 adventures, and a journey around the world. But I finished my son's bucket list. This is that story, and the lessons that saved me. My name is Jonathan. I'm 58 years old. 10 years ago, my son died. And in his death, he taught me how to live. This is our story. His name was Daniel, my only child. He was 17 years old, a senior in high school, planning for college, full of life and dreams. And on March 3rd, 2014, he went to school like any other day. That afternoon, a drunk driver ran a red light. Daniel died instantly, and my world ended with him. Daniel was my best friend. We hiked together, talked about everything. He was brilliant, funny, compassionate. He wanted to be a doctor, wanted to help people. He had this infectious laugh that could light up a room. And just like that, he was gone. No warning, no goodbye, no chance to tell him one more time how much I loved him. Just gone. The funeral was a blur. Hundreds of people telling me he was in a better place. That God had a plan. Empty words that meant nothing. My son was gone. Nothing could fix that. For weeks, I couldn't enter his room, couldn't touch his things. My wife and I, we were drowning in grief. We couldn't help each other because we were both barely surviving. I stopped going to work, stopped eating, stopped caring about anything. I wanted to die. I honestly wanted to die because a world without Daniel didn't make sense. I spent 3 months in that darkness, not really living, just existing, going through the motions. My wife finally convinced me to start going through Daniel's things. Not to get rid of them, just to, I don't know, connect with him somehow. So one afternoon, I went into his room, started looking through his desk, and I found it, a notebook, hidden in the back of his bottom drawer. On the cover, in his handwriting, things I want to do before I die. Daniel's bucket list. 23 items. 23 dreams my 17-year-old son had written down. Some were simple. See the northern lights. Learn to surf. Play guitar in front of people. Others were profound. Help someone who really needs it. Tell someone I'm afraid. Forgive myself for not being perfect. I sat on his bed and read that list over and over. And I cried harder than I'd cried at his funeral. Because Daniel had dreams I never knew about. We talked about everything, or so I thought. But he'd kept this private. This secret wish list of who he wanted to be, what he wanted to experience. And he'd never get to do any of it. 17 years old, and his dreams died with him. But then something shifted in me. A thought. Crazy. Impossible. But suddenly crystal clear. What if I did them? What if I completed Daniel's bucket list for him? What if I lived the dreams he couldn't? Maybe that could mean something. I went to his grave that evening. I sat there with his bucket list, and I made him a promise. Daniel, I said, I'm going to do every single thing on this list. Every dream you had, I'm going to make it real. For you. Because of you. I'm going to live for both of us now. It was the first purpose I'd felt since he died. The first reason to keep breathing. I started with number 1. See the northern lights? Daniel had always been fascinated by them. Talked about the physics, the beauty, the magic. So 3 months after his death, I booked a trip to Iceland. Alone. I'd never traveled alone before. Never been to Iceland. But I was doing this for Daniel. And when I saw them, those lights dancing across the Arctic sky, I broke down. Because Daniel should have been there. But also because it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I took a photo, not of the lights, of me holding Daniel's bucket list with the northern lights behind it. And I posted it online with a simple caption, number 1 complete. For Daniel. I didn't expect what happened next. The post went viral. Thousands of people shared it. Hundreds sent messages. Parents who'd lost children. People inspired by the idea. Strangers offering to help with items on the list. I realized Daniel's story was touching people. His dreams mattered to strangers who'd never met him. And suddenly, I wasn't alone in this mission. I had a community, people following the journey, cheering me on, sharing their own stories of loss and hope. Daniel's death was creating connection, creating meaning, and that gave me the strength to continue. Item number 4, learn to surf. I'm 50 years old, never surfed in my life. But Daniel wanted to, so I learned. I fell, a lot, but I learned. When I finally stood up on that board and rode my first wave, I screamed. Screamed with joy and grief and triumph. Because I'd done something Daniel never got to do. And it felt like he was there with me. Like I was carrying him through these experiences. Showing him the world he'd wanted to see. Living the life he'd wanted to live. Over the next 10 years, I checked off item after item. I learned guitar and played in front of people. Terrifying. I volunteered at a children's hospital. I went skydiving. I took a pottery class. I helped build houses for families in need. I did things that scared me. Things that pushed me. Things that made me grow. All for Daniel, but really for myself too. Item number 12 was the hardest. Tell someone I'm afraid. Daniel had written that. My 17-year-old son, admitting he was scared. So I had to do the same. I joined a grief support group. And one night, I stood up and I told them, I'm terrified. Terrified that Daniel's life didn't matter. Terrified that I'll forget his voice. Terrified that completing this list won't bring him back. Terrified that when it's done, I'll have nothing left. And they held space for that fear. Didn't try to fix it, just witnessed it. And that act, that vulnerability Daniel had encouraged, it healed something in me I didn't know was broken. The list saved my marriage too. My wife Sarah and I, we'd been so lost in our own grief, we'd forgotten we still had each other. But as I worked through Daniel's list, she started joining me. Item 15. Do something spontaneous and romantic. Daniel had wanted that. So Sarah and I, we took a trip. No planning. Just went. And we talked. Really talked. About Daniel. About our pain. About our love. About surviving. Item 18. Help someone who really needs it. I started mentoring kids who'd lost parents. Kids in foster care. Kids who needed a father figure. Because Daniel would have done that. I met a kid named Marcus. 15 years old. Lost his dad to suicide. Angry at the world. And I saw Daniel in him. The potential. The pain. So I showed up. Every week. Taught him things. Listened to him. And slowly he opened up. Started healing. Started trying. And one day he told me, you saved my life. But the truth is, helping him save mine. 10 years. 23 items. 15 countries. Hundreds of experiences. Thousands of moments where I felt Daniel with me. Where I felt his spirit guiding me. Where grief transformed into gratitude. I wasn't just completing a list. I was discovering who I was supposed to be. Who Daniel had seen potential in me to become. And then there was item 23. The last one. The one I've been avoiding because I knew what it meant. Forgive yourself for not being perfect. Daniel had written that for himself. But it was for me too. Because I'd spent 10 years carrying guilt. Guilt that I hadn't been there that day. Hadn't prevented the accident. Hadn't said goodbye. Hadn't known about his bucket list while he was alive. Guilt that I'd survived and he hadn't. And this final item was asking me to let that go. So I went back to Daniel's grave. Sat there with the completed list. And I said, Daniel, I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry I didn't know about these dreams while you were alive. I'm sorry for every time I was too busy, too distracted, too blind to see who you really were. But I see now, and I've lived your dreams. And I forgive myself, because you would forgive me, because you love me despite my imperfections. And I checked off that final item. All 23 items. Complete. Daniel's bucket list. Finished. And I sat there crying because it was done, and I didn't know what to do next. But then I realized the list wasn't the point. The list was Daniel's final gift to me. A roadmap for how to live fully, how to face fear, how to help others, how to forgive, how to transform grief into purpose. He couldn't complete his dreams, but by completing them for him, I learned how to dream again myself, how to live again, how to love again. So I started my own list, my bucket list, things I want to do, not for Daniel, for me. because he taught me that life is too short to leave dreams unwritten, too precious to waste on fear, too valuable to spend sleepwalking through. And every item on my list I dedicate to him, because he gave me permission to live fully. I travel now, speaking about Daniel's story, about grief, about turning pain into purpose, about honoring those we've lost by living fully. And everywhere I go, people tell me their own stories. Parents who've lost children, people carrying grief, individuals who've forgotten how to dream, and they start their own lists. They start living differently. They hug their kids tighter. They take the trips they've been postponing. They tell people they love them, because Daniel's story reminds them, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. All we have is now, and now is when we need to live. People ask me if completing the list brought closure, and I tell them, no. Losing a child never has closure. The grief never ends. I still cry. I still miss him every single day. There's still a Daniel-shaped hole in my heart that nothing will ever fill. But the list gave me purpose. It transformed my grief from something that was destroying me into something that was building me, into something that was helping others. Daniel died at 17, but his dreams lived through me. And now they're living through thousands of others who heard his story and decided to start living differently. I'm 58 years old. My son died 10 years ago, and I miss him every second of every day. But I'm grateful. Grateful he existed. Grateful for 17 years with him. Grateful for the bucket list that saved my life. Grateful that his brief time on earth created ripples that are still spreading. That's legacy. That's love. That's what it means to truly honor someone. I wrote a book about our journey, Daniel's bucket list. Every penny goes to a foundation I started in his name. We help kids create and complete their own bucket lists. Kids with terminal illnesses, kids in foster care, kids who've lost hope. Because Daniel taught me, dreams matter. Even if you can't complete them yourself, even if someone else has to complete them for you, they matter because they represent hope. And hope is how we survive. We've helped over 300 kids so far, 300 bucket lists, thousands of dreams, all because Daniel wrote down his hopes and I refused to let them die with him. Some of these kids survived and are now living their dreams. Some didn't make it, but every single one of them mattered. Every single dream was honored. Every single life was celebrated. Because that's what Daniel taught me. Life isn't measured in years. It's measured in moments, in dreams, in love, in the impact you have on others. And by that measure, Daniel's 17 years matter more than some people's 70. So if you're watching this, I want you to do something. Right now, write down one dream. One thing you've always wanted to do, but keep postponing. Just one. And then do it. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait until it's too late. Because Daniel didn't get to complete his list, but you still can. And every dream you live, you honor not just yourself, but everyone who didn't get the chance. Life is short. Dreams are precious. The people we love won't be here forever. So live now. Dream now. Love now. While you still can. Daniel would be 27 now. I wonder who he'd be, what he'd have accomplished, who he'd have loved, what dreams he'd have added to his list. I'll never know. That's the tragedy. But what I do know is this. His life mattered. His dreams mattered. And by living them, I made sure the world knew it. That's all any of us can hope for. To matter. To be remembered. To leave the world different than we found it. I visit Daniel's grave every week. I tell him about the foundation, about the kids we've helped, about his mom and me, about my new bucket list, about how he saved me. And sometimes I swear I can feel him there. Proud, happy, free. My boy, my beautiful boy who taught me everything, who gave me purpose in death that I'd been missing in life. Thank you for letting me share Daniel with you. If this story moved you, please share it. Maybe it'll inspire someone to start living, to stop waiting, to honor their loved ones by living fully. Subscribe for more stories. And please start your own bucket list today. For Daniel, for yourself, for everyone who didn't get the chance.